Hi guys, we're going to talk more about those organic compounds. And so just a quick review, remember that organic means that it has to have carbon and hydrogen. That's what organic means. And it might contain other elements, but it doesn't have to. If it can, or if it does, that's okay, but as long as it has C and H, that's what it means for it to be organic. And so we describe organic things as saturated and unsaturated. And maybe you've heard of saturated and unsaturated fats. I'm going to talk about what those definitions mean. So if we say that a compound is saturated, it only contains single bonds between the carbons. So a good way to remember that is saturated means single. Okay, and what happens when you have something saturated? It's basically full of hydrogens. Remember, saturated means kind of like full. It has as much as it can possibly have. When you have single bonds, you have as many hydrogens attached as possible. So what you would see is, okay, here's a carbon, and a single bond is represented with one line between it. Okay, and there might be some hydrogens also attached, but again, everything is only going to have single bonds on it. So this is what something saturated would look like. Only single bonds, which just means a single line. Now if something is unsaturated, then it can have double or triple bonds between the carbons. And what that means is you'll still have some hydrogens, but not as many as you possibly could have. So a double bond will have a double line like this, and a triple bond will look like this. So if I showed you, give myself a little room here. So here's a double bond between these carbons. Here's a triple bond between these. These are both unsaturated. So I can still stick a couple of hydrogens on here. But notice up here in my saturated compound I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hydrogens. Here I only have 4, right? So it's not as full of hydrogens as possible. On this compound, I can only have a couple of hydrogens. So what you need to do now is look at these examples on the bottom. If you see a single bond, it is saturated. If you see even one double or triple bond, it is unsaturated. So try to identify them right now, and then I'll compare answers with you. Alright, in this first example I only see single bonds, so it is saturated, and I'm going to abbreviate. In this next example, there's a double bond, there's a double bond, there's a double bond, which means it is unsaturated. In this example, I see a triple bond, which means it is unsaturated. Here, this one's drawn a little bit differently, but this right here, those two lines, that actually means a double bond. So this is unsaturated. In this next one, I only see single lines, single bonds, so this is saturated. In this example, I only see single bonds, so it is saturated. Here I see a double bond, which makes it unsaturated. The next example has all single bonds, so it is saturated. Here I see a triple bond, so it is unsaturated. Here I see a lot of things. Here's a triple bond, and over here I have several double bonds, so this example is unsaturated. Here's another double bond, which makes this example unsaturated. And its last example, even though there's a lot of things going on, there's only single bonds, which makes it saturated. Alright, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions.